guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a 5 pros and 5 cons of living in Seattle as a 23-year-old. Today we have a little bit of a different setup. I wanted to do something a little bit different. I'm sitting on the ground in front of my couch on the coffee table. I have some notes here that I want to refer to. Got my lemon water, so we are all good to go. I'm super excited to film this video. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I would love for you guys to stick around. Without further ado, let's get into the video. So I think I'm gonna start off with the 5 pros and then end off with the 5 cons, but I wanna give you guys some context first. So I moved to Seattle. At this point, it would have been about 4 to 5 months, so fairly new, but I've learned a lot and I'm still getting used to things, but so far I love it here. Originally I am from Southern California, born and raised in Orange County. Miss California a lot sometimes, but this is just a new fun chapter in my life. So all these pros and cons are obviously coming from my perspective, especially someone who just came from living in California literally all of her life. So with that being said, I'm gonna start off with my first pro, which is the seasons here. I feel like living in Seattle, specifically the Pacific Northwest area, seasons here are definitely a thing. All 4 seasons. In California, there was literally only 1 season, which was basically hot summer weather. Yeah, once in a while during the winter, there would be some gloom and like the tiniest bit of rain, but for the most part, California was sunshine all year round, which I absolutely loved and I really do miss, because I can already see the gloom peeking in a little bit right now as we approach fall here. I do know that there are seasons here in Seattle. I can already see so many of the leaves changing colors, and that I know there is summer, which I'm experiencing right now in Seattle, which is honestly so pretty. I think it's one of my favorite things about living here so far. The blue skies every day, the perfect like weather right now is like always in the 70s, and all the greenery around me is just so pretty. I know right now in California, it's literally like blistering hot right now. Growing up in California, I never really got to experience seasons, but that is definitely a pro for me because I get to see how the weather changes throughout the year. The second pro I want to talk about is the budding and growing community around Seattle and around greater Seattle. There is just so much infrastructure and apartments being built and high-rises being built, which I think is a really great sign because that shows that a lot of people want to move here. There's a lot of buzz around here. I think that's super cool. It just feels really like fresh and modern and like a breath of fresh air. That's what I've noticed. I feel like everywhere I drive through, there's like construction, like in a good way, you know. I know the city that I used to live in was starting to feel a little bit stale. Nothing really was being built new. There wasn't any new restaurants, new development. It was just kind of getting like stale and like at a stale point. So seeing so much infrastructure and apartment buildings, high rises, businesses being built around Seattle just shows that the city is continuing to thrive and, you know, just become a greater city than already is. So I think that's a really cool thing, because that just means there's more communities that are going to be brought, more people to the area, more diversity. So I really think that's a really cool pro of what I'm noticing. My third pro is very obvious, but it has to be stated, which is all the pretty greenery and forests and mountains around Washington, Seattle. It is just absolutely stunning. Like I said, I grew up in California, so I've literally never seen this much greenery at all. I see a lot of like brown mountains, a lot of hills and plains in California. We have palm trees, but even then I think palm trees aren't even native to California. So there are just so much pretty wilderness trails, hiking, mountains, literally anything outdoorsy you can think of. And this is coming from a person who isn't super outdoorsy at all. So that just shows a lot about how beautiful it is and how much more I want to explore and go on hikes and go to like Mount Rainier, which I haven't, which I definitely want to, but it's just so pretty. And I've seen so many beautiful pictures of the lakes and that I definitely want to visit as well. Just driving through the city and driving around greater Seattle, the landscape behind you, in front of you, literally 360 is so pretty and like a breath of fresh air. I literally love it so much. You're surrounded by so much freshness and the trees, so that is definitely a very nice pro. My fourth pro is the amount of diverse food options here. Definitely in California, there was a lot of diverse food options as well. So over here in Washington, in Seattle, it is pretty much the same thing. There is a bunch of different Asian foods, Japanese, Chinese, Korean. There's a ton of Indian food as well. Obviously, we have American cuisine as well. Not too much Mexican food, but definitely a lot of diverse food options. And I'll talk more about food later in one of my cons though. But as far as like diverse food options, there are a good amount. Whenever I'm craving something or a different type of food, I'll look on Yelp and pretty much something will pop up and it has really good reviews. So Seattle is literally the hub for foods. There's literally every bakery you can think of as well. Every coffee shop. I mean, Seattle is the home of Starbucks, of course, if you guys didn't know. The first Starbucks was built in Seattle, and there is just so much food, so much drinks, and it's just amazing. There is definitely a lot of diversity, which is really good because that would kind of suck coming from California where there is a good amount of diverse food options. So coming here wasn't that much of a change, but that definitely is a good pro. So the fifth and final pro that I'm going to talk about is no state income tax. That is pretty self-explanatory. That is awesome that Washington doesn't have state income tax. That means just more of your paycheck just goes to you, which is awesome. So that is definitely an awesome pro. So now we're going to move on to the 5 cons. So the first one I'm going to talk about is what I've been noticing so far is that a lot of places close super early, whether it's dining or like entertainment places. It just closes early. Back in California, I remember like boba shops, for example, even like a 9:30 or 10 is pretty reasonable, but like literally everything around me closes like at 8:30 and I'm like, girl, like that's what I've noticed in general. Obviously not every single place, but in general, mostly it closes pretty early. So yeah, I'm not really sure why it's like that. I guess every place is just different, but something that I wasn't really used to. Whenever I would like look something up, it'd be like closing in 30 minutes and I was like, okay. So for the second con is the roads and signs here are kind of hard to navigate, and that's coming from someone, like I said, who came from California when traffic is super bad and the roads are crazy. And I know California has the stigma of, you know, crazy bad traffic, but I don't necessarily mean traffic in this sense, because traffic here is not bad, especially compared to California. I mean the roads and the sign. A freeway entrance will have like the tiniest sign in the corner, like next to like a tree, for example. But in California, there'd be like this huge sign right in front of you before you enter the freeway, for example, and it'll be huge right in front of you, displayed in big words. But over here, it'll be like the tiniest little sign, like right here, like in the corner, and like this weird like curvature, and you have to like break your neck to see it, and it's really dangerous, especially like if you don't know where you are. When I had family come over to visit too, they noticed the same exact thing as well. Another thing is also street signs. I don't know if it's like this everywhere in Washington, but around where I live, a lot of street signs are like numbers, so like 114th Street, 125th Street, whatever, like something like that. Whereas where I came from, a lot of street signs are like named out of like words, you know, like Cherry Lane or Blossom Road. Over here, it's like a lot of numbers, so in the very beginning, it took a little bit getting used to. So my third con would be the gloomy and rainy weather. Although I haven't experienced a true winter here yet, I definitely know about it, and I can already kind of see it coming. There are already some gloomy days right now, approaching fall. Whereas right now, if I were to look at like the weather back home in California, it's literally like in the 80s and 90s still. I know that can be a little bit repetitive, the gloomy and rainy weather. I've heard that in the winter, like 3 months straight will be like gloom, like not even like a peak of sunshine. So that's a little bit interesting. I was here last March visiting and like looking at apartments and stuff like that, middle/end of winter, and it was raining really hard. So that gave me a good taste of like winter as well. Rain doesn't bother me that much. It's more of like the gloom. I feel like sometimes you just want like a little bit of sunlight, you know, to shine in. And sometimes gloom can make you feel like a little bit more sad, at least for me. So hopefully that doesn't happen. So the fourth con is about restaurants and food, like I mentioned earlier. Although there are a lot of diverse food options, I will say there's not a lot of big named restaurants. More common in other states, especially California. I came from a place where there's a ton of big name chains, but over here there's not a lot at all. I remember when I was back home, I would always be like, oh, I wish there were more local mom and pop places. So now there are so many local mom and pop places, which is so cool, but I still miss like the big name restaurants. So that was one con for me that I've noticed here, but that doesn't really bother me too much because, like I said, the local places are so yummy. So the last con is the cost of living here is pretty high. Food, groceries, apartment, just living here, all the prices here are pretty hiked up. I'm kind of used to that because California is pretty expensive too. I think Seattle is a growing and bustling city and it's very popular. I feel like more and more people are living here, so that makes sense. Especially I think after the pandemic, I've heard that apartment prices have definitely gone up in Seattle. So yeah, just keep that in mind for the cost of living here. That was my 5 pros and 5 cons of living in Seattle as a 23-year-old and especially one who just moved from California to here. So far, I have been loving Seattle. I've been loving this transition and getting to explore all the new places. There's obviously pros and cons to anywhere you live, but I'm loving it here. I enjoy it so much. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed. Let me know down below what are your pros and cons of wherever you live. I would love to know. Follow me on Instagram if you haven't already. It'll be somewhere on the screen and always down below. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!